Hey, this is Don Costa, and you're listening to That Real Estate Tech Guy.
I can tell you one thing. Technology is the single most important aspect of every business that has successfully scaled.
It's time for That Real Estate Tech Guy. It's your weekly chance to explore how technology can help your real estate business explode. Each week, you'll hear from real estate investors who have been there and done that and find out their favorite technology tips. Listen in as Jordan speaks with tech companies and learns about new technologies and new ideas that will help you scale your business. And now, join your host, Jordan Samuel Fleming, CEO of Smartphone, for this week's episode.
Hey everybody, it's Jordan Samuel Fleming here with another episode of That Real Estate Tech Guy, and I am delighted that my co-pilot for today's episode is none other than Don Costa from Flip Talk. Don, welcome to the podcast. Why don't you give a little introduction to yourself and all the things you do?
All right. Well, I'm not exciting, I'm sure, but I've been a real estate investor for about 20 years. I started in 2003. And so currently our business model, we wholesale, we fix and flip, we do some buy and hold, and we have a handful of other strategies we implement. But primarily my game for the last 20 years has been direct to seller through different marketing methods and wholesale and fix and flip.
Fantastic. What I love, I get a good range of guests on the show from technology companies and integrators like that, but also investors of a variety of backgrounds. And whenever I have someone on that has a longer history in investing, I know that the change in things and the way things have moved over the last little while is going to be something that you can really impact on and give a perspective on. So when you think about your kind of journey as an investor, and particularly in terms of how much technology may have moved to the center of how a business is run, can you give us a little bit of a feel of that journey?
Oh, absolutely. When I started, YouTube was just barely in its infancy. I started back in 2003. I think 2004 and 5 was kind of when YouTube was starting to become prominent. So we didn't have YouTube University. Just from the education standpoint, I have a podcast. I'm an educator as well. From the education standpoint, we didn't have the same resources that people have today. Just to kind of know even where to start, right? Before it was like late night television, infomercials was kind of where we would get, an opportunity to maybe buy a product where we could gain some knowledge. So that aspect of it is totally different for those people who are looking to even start in the real estate game. The opportunities for knowledge and information that's out there is just abundant and fruitful. And if you're not starting your journey in entrepreneurship or real estate investing in general, then you're doing yourself a disservice, because the opportunities that you have today compared to what I had then is night and day different. Then you take the technology and the resources from just being in the business. So I remember printing. I started pre-foreclosures. I started door knocking pre-foreclosures. We didn't have the same type of, resources with some of the products out there as far as data opportunities, smartphone, some of the other opportunities out there. So we had to, kind of dig through newspapers and dig through websites and go to title companies to get our information and our data. I door knock pre-foreclosures, so I get a list from the title company, and then I would build out a route in Microsoft Streets and Maps. And then I would print the pages, and I would literally flip through the pages, and I'd follow the route and door knock with Microsoft Streets and Maps. And so, GPS was just starting to become a thing. I remember my buddy took his computer and he bolted his computer into the passenger side floorboard and ran a little antenna out so that he could do his route on his computer. And that was after about 2 years in the game. So the technology has advanced so much and become so attainable, for us today. Technology, just looking back, there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, a lot of grunt work back then. And now it's like technology just makes it so easy that we don't even think about the fact that, there was a time where it was hard to do.
Let me follow up on that, actually, because particularly because you're also an educator, right? You're an investor with a lot of experience, but you're an educator, which means you see newer investors. And your point there around the kind of blood, sweat, and tears and the availability of technology and all of the tools you have at your disposal now, I do wonder if, there's something that I've seen a lot with investors, which is the shiny key syndrome, right? Because there's so much out there, they're just like, I'm going to do this. Oh, now I'm going to do, and the discipline of kind of grafting a craft and really deeply understanding something maybe doesn't go hand in hand with, with jaunting from one thing to the other. Do you think that am I being an old fogey in that sense about that? Or is there a sometimes a worry that there's not enough focus on the graft part of the technology revolution?
Shiny object syndrome is a real thing. So, being able to stick to something, having that discipline is very important. It is a double-edged sword because it's so easy. I mean, really the only thing that really holds anybody back is confidence at this point in time. The knowledge is there, the resources are there, the technology is there, and it's inexpensive comparatively to where it was when I first started out. And so the only thing holding you back at this point is confidence, just actually taking massive imperfect action and gaining the confidence each step you take. And then the second thing that usually, once people start to take action, the second thing that usually takes over is that shiny object system. It's like, I haven't given this enough effort to really see results, but I'm going to go over here. And then I haven't given this enough effort to really see results, and I'm going to go over here. And that is a thing. That is a real thing. And there is, like you said, there's got to be some discipline in it. I don't think it's an old fogey thing. Even those of us who've been in the game for a number of years, we have to be conscious about the fact that we have the ability to suffer from shiny object syndrome as well, and we got to stay kind of disciplined. It's hard when you see Facebook highlight reels and somebody's doing some new crazy thing, or maybe that looks like they're winning on the Facebook highlight reels, but you don't see what's going behind the scenes. You don't see the blood, sweat, and tears that got them there. You don't see the mistakes they made. You don't see whether or not it's really working or they're just bragging. So it's important to stick to the fundamentals, and it's important to follow a path. And it's important to make sure that you know for sure that path is going to work and that you have it working to its fullest ability before you start to add layers of other things.
That's a great point. And, great point both for that, but also, it is so easy if you're streaming through Instagram and you're seeing, so-and-so with a new Lamborghini and so-and-so saying, here's the easiest thing, you follow this tip and you'll be able to make $5 million tomorrow. And, now most sensible people will look at that and say, yeah, okay, well, really. But the graft that actually everybody who's successful, there's an element of graft and I mean that in the best way. There's an element of just hard work and mastering what you need to do. There's luck involved and all these things, but hard work is no substitute. And I think sometimes one of the reasons I started this podcast is I feel like a lot of people view technology as a quick and easy solution as opposed to a structural solution to building a scaled business, right? They see it. That's my view. What do you think?
Well, that and just everything is so everything moves so fast today. The attention span is so limited today, and that's part of it too. There's one thing that's an absolute truth, and over the 20 years, what's proven to me time and time again, and I lost a lot of money. In 2008, I lost a lot of money. That's a whole different story. But so it's not like I just won the entire time, and I've come up with this. I've won and I've lost big in some cases. And what I've proven to myself over and over and over again is the fundamentals. They work, and everything else is just a shiny object. There are fundamentals in business. There are fundamentals in real estate investing. The numbers are the numbers, period. You can't square peg, round hole the numbers. You got to have good people on your team. You got to invest in those people and invest in yourself and become a better leader. When all marketing works if you actually understand the marketing and you deploy it properly. Usually what happens with marketing that's the disconnect or where it's broken is after the phone rings and you're not paying attention to making sure that you're doing the proper sales cycle, that you're doing follow-up properly, that you're doing the things in your organization to make sure that you're maximizing every dollar. And so many people think, well, I've deployed this money in marketing, but I haven't got as many deals as I want, or I haven't got a deal, so I need to change the marketing channel. No, what happened after the phone rang? Maybe that's what you got to fix. Do you have the right system when people are calling in so that the call is being handled properly and going to the right place? Are your calls being documented, recorded? Are your leads being documented so that you can do proper follow-up in your CRM? Are all those things happening so that you can maximize that marketing channel? If you don't fix the core component of your business, if you don't fix the fundamentals in your business, then nothing you do outside of that is going to produce the fruits that you want it to produce.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more with that. And when you come down to, I look at it a lot of times. If I go to an event and I'm speaking at an event about technology, whether it's about phone systems or wider, I built CRMs for 15 years, 10 of which were for real estate investors. So, there's a lot of technology that I've had my hands in. And whenever I talk to new investors about starting a journey and sort of building if you're interested in building a scaled business, right? Mm-hmm. If you just want to there's nothing wrong with you being yourself and doing some deals and making some money and having a great life. That's great. That is wicked. And if that's your goal, wicked. But if you want a scaled business, scaling a business is hard. Starting one's easy. And that's where I think your point about the fundamentals and how you execute the business fundamentals, and for instance, if we look at technology, maybe the fundamentals of CRM. If I look at the fundamentals of an acquisition CRM, I look at things like visibility of leads, follow-up structures, and maybe the ability to view all the communications, right? What would you say are some of the fundamental bits around maybe CRM systems that you would coach people and you would see as essential if they're starting to build a business?
Well, first of all, I want to say that I still think technology is important and having it in place properly, even if you're a one-man or one-woman show, because that's really when you need to be on top of things so you don't have the people in place. So for me, I'm a big systems and process guy. A system is one of three things. It's a person, it's a process, or it's a product you implement in your organization. So if you have something that's broken in your system, you need to look at who's the who that can handle that. What's the process we can put in place if A equals C, then D, right? So what's the process, or then what's the product or program we can put in place? For instance, like smartphone, being able to, smartphone tied with a good CRM documents the calls coming into your organization. So you can see, for instance, we do marketing. I'm taking a deep dive here, but I send out postcards. I've been known for sending out 1 million postcards in a year. We track everything. So we will code our postcard with whatever list we're mailing to. So not only will it tell me who called, when they called, but it'll tell me what marketing channel they called off of, what list they called off of, or what postcard I sent. And that way I know when I sent that marketing piece. And so we just locked up a deal that we've had in our CRM for 3 years that's now a marketing follow-up channel in our system, but it tells me, based on what smartphone told our system, it tells me that was a list from 2018 that I originally called in September of 2018 off of a marketing list. So they even dated the original call. So we're able to track things down to a granular level, and we're able to make decisions on how to best deploy our marketing based on that data that comes in. That's a deep dive at a high level, but even for a one-man or woman show, to be able to just be on top of your follow-up, like a good CRM, and having some good components in place to be on top of your follow-up. Because when you're running wild, you're doing it all. You're doing acquisitions, you're doing dispositions, or you're managing rehabs, you're not going to be thinking about who you need to follow up with tomorrow or Monday or Friday. But a good system will tell you, they'll give you the notifications and say, this is what you need to do today. And that makes it dummy proof. We don't have to think, and that's what's important.
Absolutely. And that, I always call it the difference between an active process and passive process. A passive process means you have to search for what I have to do. An active process is one where what I have to do is pushed in front of my face. And, the fail point is me just ignoring it and deciding not to do it, in which case, well, there's only so much I can do about that. So now, just kind of moving maybe slightly sideways on this, obviously, when you're sending out that many things like postcards, etc. I think a lot of times, particularly maybe newer investors, when you start to spend money on marketing, it's a little terrifying.
Absolutely.
Right, like now, and I know I don't know this as an investor. I know this as someone who owns businesses, so
Right.
I know how much money I spend on things. And when the numbers start getting big, you're like, Jesus! But actually, the scariest bit isn't when they get big, because at that point you're used to it. The scariest bit is when you first start out. So, would you, when you think back to when you were kind of starting to spend money, and your ability maybe to track and make metric-based decisions. How did you manage it then, and how much easier is it to do now with the technology that we have at our fingertips?
Well, when I first started, I was door knocking, and we were in a time where you couldn't even track. I did direct mail back then as well, and we did some other things, but I even did phone book advertising. But we didn't have the ability to track. You move into, 2012 and beyond. There's more ability to track these things. But even then, I was like most investors, where it's like, I think, I feel, I hope. And so we're sending out marketing, we're getting deals, and we're saying, I think it came from here, I think it came from there, but we really didn't know. It wasn't until 2018 that I got a wild hair, and I'm an ADD guy, I'm not necessarily a data guy, but I got a wild hair, and I was like, okay, we're going to change the phone number for each postcard we send out. Basically, if we change, like we had 3 different postcards we're sending, if we change the postcard, or we change the list, we're going to change the phone number. And then we got granular and said, okay, if we send it in first quarter, second quarter, or third quarter, it's going to have a different phone number corresponding with the quarter. And we started just diving into data. And what happened was, this is a great example. I sent out a non-owner-occupied list and a unknown equity list in January of 2018, and I got a whole bunch of calls, and I started buying off of my team. Was telling me that the calls were coming off the non-owner-occupied list, and so that's what my team was telling me. And so we started buying deals, and it seemed like that's where all the deals are coming from. And realistically, for the first quarter or so, that's where most of the deals are coming from. But then I stopped mailing to the unknown equity list. In May and June, we got 22 and then 29 contracts consecutively, back to back. And so for the last couple of months, all I've been mailing to is a non-owner-occupied list. And I started thinking, well, that's where all the deals are coming from. Think and feel. And so, but we had the data now, we were tracking. And when I sat down and looked at the data, the split test telling me where what phone number people were calling in from, all the contracts, about 90+% of the contracts we got in May and June came from the unknown equity list we mailed in January. Had I not had that data, I would have thought and felt that they came from the non-owner-occupied list, and I would have doubled down on that list. And the unknown equity list, what happens? You have high-hanging fruit lists, you have low-hanging fruit lists. Some pop early, some pop later, some pop in follow-up. That unknown equity list ended up being my most profitable list that year. And then just real quick, the reason why it was the most profitable list that year, I had another list that brought in the same amount of money, but it was the most profitable list I had that year because I mailed to it less than other lists. And what I learned was my mail cadence was too often. And so now I was able to test that and say, okay, I don't need to mail every 30 days. Every 60 to 90 days is more appropriate for certain lists. And so it gives you a lot of decision-making power in your marketing, whether it's cold calling or direct mail or anything that you do. If you look at the data, you can start making decisions based on facts and not feelings, and start really... It may not be you're bringing in more deals, but you can at least increase the profit on the deals you're bringing in. And that's where it matters.
Absolutely. I remember having a conversation with an investor, customer of mine when I was building their CRM probably 6 years ago. And we were building in some metrics, tracking bits. And when we started to review it together, what became very clear for him, I remember him saying, man, why are we spending so much advertising to these folks? Because if I thought we were making a lot of money here, but actually when I'm looking at the metrics and I'm looking at how much money we're making for the deal and how much effort we're making for the deals, the sweet spot is here and not here. So now let me double down here because I've got the context to make an informed decision as opposed to I think that this is going to work.
Right. And that's where the technology really matters, is informed decision making, and that's when it goes from a hobby and a knee-jerk reaction to a real business.
Yeah. And that's the difference between a hobby and a scaled business that can actually go, that can actually build a team, because you can run teams based on metrics and you can run teams based on qualified data in a way that allows you to be confident and scale them, which you'll never be able to do if you're simply flying by night.
100%. Absolutely.
That's a really interesting part, and I think it's one of those things that, I think that there's a lot of conversations around metrics and KPIs, and people talk about them. I do worry sometimes, particularly with some newer investors, that they hear these words, and so they repeat that they want these words, but they don't necessarily then use the data to make the informed decision, right? Like, my view is that there are a handful of really core KPI metrics you probably need across different parts of your business. And if you go too much further than that, you're going to become an Excel nerd who is so happy with numbers that they never actually do anything. Do you see that ever happen?
I do. There is. We did a deep dive in data. Like, we did crazy. I have probably over 100 phone numbers, more than that, honestly, and tracking and testing and different things like that. So then that may have been overkill, but it really gave us some decision-making power in our marketing. But that's on the tracking component of things. Like, again, we're changing phone numbers do they call on a different color card? We found, like, the Google Street View card, for instance, you'd think that would be the most popular card in our data set, right? But it was actually we call a doodle card, looked like a 5-year-old wrote it, was the one we had the most completed conversions from, the most contracts bought. So there are aspects of it where you do want to kind of deep dive and start to really nerd out on your data. But when it comes to KPIs, you're right. I mean, really, it's what does it cost you to get the phone to ring? What does it cost? What does a lead actually cost you? Because every time the phone rings, it isn't a lead. How many leads does it take to get you to an appointment, and how many appointments does it take to get you to a contract? And that's really the 4 you need. You could throw in there in the middle between appointments and contracts how many offers, and you can look at, am I making enough offers? And is it 10 offers to a contract, 5 offers to a contract? But really, the 4 you need is what makes my phone ring? How much does it cost to get me a lead? How much does it cost to get me an appointment? And how much does it cost to get me a contract? And then the last one is the money. How much does it cost me to actually get a closed deal? And what's that profit? And if you just follow those basic KPIs, for the most part, you're going to be able to make some good decisions on your business.
And you're going to be able to reverse engineer that so
Absolutely.
that if you're trying to establish a goal for the future with enough data over a bit of period of time, you should be able to reverse engineer and saying, well, I know that this is the equation that gets me here. Now I can extrapolate that and say, if I want to up this by, if I want to go from 800,000 in fees this year to 2 million next year, I know that the activity I need to do at each of these steps, I should be able to calculate.
You should be able to calculate. But just I want to throw this out there for anybody who's listening. There is the law of diminishing returns. And that's what I learned in 2018. Sometimes the more money you throw at a marketing channel or at something doesn't mean more money is coming back. So being able to see when, okay, now my average KPI to get my phone to ring is X, but it's starting to go up. What am I doing differently in that marketing channel? Is my team broken? Or are they falling off and not having the proper conversations? Or have I done something different in my marketing channel? Am I spending more money? Am I mailing more often? Am I doing, am I not refreshing my list enough? I'm cold calling. Like, where is that process broken? And those KPIs will let you see that. Is something broken, or have I just hit that point in that marketing channel or that market where it doesn't matter if I spend any more money, no more deals are coming in?
Yeah, sooner or later, I may have saturated to the point where where you can spend another 10 grand, but
it's not coming in.
You're not going to do anything with it.
Right.
That's a good point, actually.
Yeah, that sweet spot. It's knowing that sweet spot. It's getting enough effort in that marketing channel to get that sweet spot and then stay there and not go past it. Yeah.
That's a great point. Well, listen, Don, I'm going to take you now to the Real Estate Tech Guy Fast 5. These are 5 fast questions I ask all the investors. Same one. 5 fast questions, 5 fast answers. Putting you on the spot a little. I'm going to dive right into that. Question number 1. What technology product has had the biggest impact on your real estate business? Pick one.
I'm gonna use smartphone, and this is not kissing up in any way, shape, or form. I mean, it really helped me track my data and dial in my marketing in a way that I never would have thought possible. And being able to just put those tracking mechanisms in place, it was huge for us. So yeah.
I'll take that endorsement. Absolutely. It makes me very happy to hear. Question number 2, what is the biggest mistake you've made with technology in your real estate business?
Taking it for granted, thinking it's push button automation, it's going to do it itself, not understanding that I got to either get in there or have somebody on my team get in there and make sure that we're utilizing it to its fullest potential.
It's a great answer. Question number 3, what is your best advice for a new investor on how to start integrating technology into their business?
Baby steps. Utilizing technology is huge, even for a newer investor. The biggest advice I would give you is start like you're going to be the business you want to be. So sit down and define the business that you want, and then start like you're going to be the business you want to be. Whether that's a one-man or one-woman show, or you want to have a big operation, and start putting that in place. If you want to have an operation with a team, then you're going to want to get something like smartphone in place. You're going to want to get a CRM in place, because you're going to want to start those habits of tracking your KPIs and building out your systems and process, so as you bring people on, you're not bringing them into chaos, but you're bringing them into purpose.
It's great point. Question number 4, what is the one thing you wish you'd known, in general, but mainly technology, when you first started your business?
So I started twice. In 2003, there wasn't a whole lot of technology available. So let's just use 2012 when I started again after losing everything. I wish I would have known the importance. I really was naive, and I think I was old school at that point because I started without technology. We were Excel spreadsheets and sticky notes for a couple of years. And, I wish somebody would have kicked me in the head and said, hey, buddy, and that, I guess maybe that's a little too harsh, but it said, hey, buddy, there's a better way. There's an easier way of doing this. And I just wish I would have started sooner.
And actually, just to follow up, that's where things like masterminds, YouTube, like you've got so much education materials now that there's really almost no excuse.
100%.
Comparatively. Final question. Now, I think you kind of answered this already. I may have to rejig these questions because I think most people answered this last one in the course of the other 4. So I may have to rejig them. But if someone's just starting out and they had to decide what 3 technology products they were going to spend their hard-earned cash on to start out. And it doesn't have to be a name brand, by the way. It doesn't have to be a specific CRM or specific phones or specific anything. But they're just starting out. What would you recommend that they spend their hard-earned money on in terms of 3 technology products?
Oh, that's probably a harder one to answer. But if you were just starting out, I would do something like PropStream for data. They're a great data source. I would definitely get a CRM in place. REI Simply, that's with an I, is a good CRM out there. And then I would utilize smartphone definitely to start tracking and that kind of thing. So there's a number of good CRMs out there. That's there's Beast Mode, there's REI Evolution, there's but get something you're comfortable with. There's on Podio, there's off Podio CRMs. Get something you're comfortable with, and just make sure it's something you're going to utilize.
100%. Great final point. Don, it's been an absolute pleasure meeting you finally. B, an absolute pleasure to hear about your story. Let's close off the episode. Can you just let everybody know how they can find you in your various different ventures?
Yeah, so I've been hosting the Flip Talk podcast for almost 7 years now. It's been a great experience. You can always find me at fliptalk.com, and you can find me all over social media. We have a lot of great things at fliptalk.com for you to get some free resources or to check out some of the things we got going on with mastermind communities and whatnot. I do want to drop something here if it's okay. We've launched the ICE Accelerator for new or newer investors. It's a mastermind coaching hybrid that I'm very, very proud of. You get all the coaching and stuff that you get from a normal, opportunity to work with somebody along with a community as well. And so we're doing some really, really cool stuff. If you are interested in that, just basically send me an email at don@fliptalk.com with ICE Accelerator in it in the subject line, and I'll show you how you can actually come check out one of our meetings in person for just $1 deposit. It's basically free to come and check us out and even see if we're a fit for you.
Fantastic. Well, listen, I will make sure that we put all of those links in the podcast page so that if you're listening to this, it's going to be very easy for you to click through on those. Don, thank you so much for giving us your wisdom and expertise tonight. Fantastic to meet you, and I appreciate all your time and wish you the best.
Thanks for listening to another amazing episode of That Real Estate Tech Guy. Head over to thatrealeestatetechguy.com to check out all episodes and get special discounts on tons of awesome real estate technology platforms.